back, you know, I mean, it's just like, my brother just had surgery, back surgery, you know, to relieve the back thing, you know. It's amazing, you know, it's all outpatient now. I mean, at least what his, you know, they go in and trim a little cartilage around the nerve and they can identify where the pain's coming from. I mean,
It is amazing.
it's amazing what's,
Medical technology.
well, you pay for it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he got me.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our meeting this morning. We have a special guest who has been playing the piano. I'm going to ask Mentois to stand up. Can you stand up so everybody can say hello? Okay, so we're giving Sue a rest today, and Mentois is going to play My Country 'Tis of Thee.
Gracious, loving God, we give you thanks and praise this day. We thank you most especially for the gift of time as we face these days of December when all major races, creeds, religions celebrate many, many holidays. Help us to remember that all time is in your hands. Help us to use it wisely. Bless the food we eat, the hands that have made it, and the fellowship we enjoy. Amen.
Mike, do we have any guests this morning?
We do have a few guests today. First of all, Mentois, who we met from the working over at the piano, did a great job this morning. Shannan Schuster, our speaker today, and also with her, Luke Berneman is visiting as well with from the school. So thank you.
Bob, do you have any updates on our two infirmed Rotarians?
Yes, there are two cards around on the table. If you haven't signed them, raise your hand, I'll pass them around. One is for Rosina Devine and one is for Carl Franz. I spoke with both of them this week. I had spoken to Carl last week as well. Carl was, hasn't been to 4 weeks now for Rotary. He was taken to the hospital, not on an emergency basis, but they found out that he has cervical cancer and he also has some kind of a growth on his head. He was losing weight, not feeling good, his blood sugars were high, and that's how they determined that that's what the problem was. He's had 3 radiation treatments in both areas, the head and the stomach, and he's going back in, I guess, today or tomorrow for some more treatments. And an MRI. He's also in a wheelchair because he's very weak. He can't walk. So I'll keep in touch with him. He doesn't really want any visitors. He can't hardly talk. His voice is gone. Now Rosina fell at home about a month ago and cut her head. Was taken to emergency on an ambulance, and she was in the Lehigh Valley Hospital for 3 weeks. They treated her, they sent her down to 17th Street for rehabilitation. She just came home this week, she's at home. She still has got 3 or 4 weeks of more rehab at home probably. She's not a happy camper, but at least she's out of the hospital. So now Tom has to give her moral support because he can't do much to help her. But they do have an aide that's with them full time. So I'll keep you updated on her, and again, I spoke to her on the phone. I was happy to hear she was home, but she doesn't look for any visitor. If you want to call him, you could probably call and talk to him. Carl, I wouldn't call at this point because it's hard to hear what he says. So I'll keep you updated on him, and that's all I can tell you. Did anybody raise their hand? They didn't sign the card? Okay, would you pass them back? It's the last 2 tables way back where Ralph is and the other one. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. So I have a beard this morning, and it's not really a beard, but a friend of, shut up. This started last Friday, okay, when I found out a friend of mine was in hospice care. And I found out this morning he just passed away. So it was really good for him. And so, but the beard will be gone next week, okay? Because it was just for him and in remembrance of our friendship. Any other announcements from the floor? Ralph?
I'd just like to remind everybody that next meeting will be the first meeting in December, and I will be selecting food for the needy. And I thank you all if you will participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. Any other announcements? Valerie?
The Emmaus Rotary Club's Facebook page continues to grow, so I thank you for that. If you have not already liked us on Facebook, please do so. And we post announcements there. Anytime you need a little more positivity on your Facebook feed, that's always a good thing. Also, if you need any help setting up a Facebook account or want to go over security settings, anything of that nature, feel free to see me and I can help you with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. Any other announcements? One more? Okay, Gary.
Sorry. Just real quick, thanks everyone who came out to Canals House over the weekend. I know it was a holiday weekend. Hour and a half, we knocked out quite a few leaves. It was a lot of good fellowship, and again, I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.
Dale?
Just a comment on that. I didn't really see anybody working. I saw everybody standing in this big pile of leaves.
That was the problem. We need smoke break.
I think the leaves got there.
Please remember there's a board meeting immediately following this meeting. Any other announcements? Hearing of none. We're going to move on to the raffle. I don't even know who has the raffle. I got it. Oh, all right, good.
Nine, 4, 8.
We got the chair. Winner.
Does he? He stuffs the box.
You're out of the running. 942. Oh, this is a play.
They pulled out 16 and put it on the floor.
Quick one. This one. 934. Oh.
I didn't get it.
It hurt your heart.
All right, Don, are you ready?
Yes.
Larry, I got
All right, a couple people, well, not a couple.
Ladies and gentlemen, please.
Chris was late, Chris Paulo, thank you. Chris Will, Mr. McKinn. Larry's leaving early. I do have a question now. When visiting Rotarians sign in at the table, are they not supposed to get some sort of recognition, a badge or something that they're wearing that they are?
They are.
I see. And who trains the table? That would be the next, that would be the
Next
vice
president, yes, yeah.
Okay, all right, so
Exactly.
Steve, I will fine for our visiting Rotarian not wearing a name badge.
Well, she didn't wear a pin either.
Oh, that's her fault.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Don.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, I like you.
Ooh, and she didn't sign in as a visiting Rotarian, so actually, mine is negated.
Not at all.
I signed
I
in
think
as
it's
a-
no.
How did,
Everybody pays, nobody keeps a clear eye.
We could go ahead.
we could, definitely. Dale, wasn't it about a month ago, somebody's daughter had a recipe that was in, and he gave up the fine so that the daughter would bring the said cookies in.
careful.
She's making a double batch within the next week or two. for
I'm
Christmas.
just checking to make sure, because it's getting
And
close
she
to-
already knows she's obligated to bring some in. She's
All right,
not bringing
okay.
well, for everybody, but.
Not enough for everybody?
She's 12.
Well, that's enough for me, 12 for me.
Don't get your tickets.
All right, just checking, making sure.
Better not eat any of them on the way here.
You don't think her dad gets your own ones?
All right, while we're all laughing, happy dollars out there. Bill.
$5. I had a picture in the morning call,
Ooh.
which I give you $2, but Don, it's not fair to have you match it because I didn't notice it until my wife brought it to my attention. The picture was done where they had the front focus and I was in the back, very fuzzy. So I gotta pay the $2.
You're very fuzzy?
You don't have to match. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
It's a fuzzy picture.
Dale?
Yeah, Eileen, could you come here just a moment? I want to show you that picture that I thought was you, that Don showed you, a lady with a witch hat on, and then you called me Humpty Dumpty. Right there, I thought that was you.
Gosh, I need new glasses to see that.
I used my rotary lens for
Well,
that.
let's put it this way, it's someone who has short hair and it's dark.
That's part of the look-alike find.
Is that what it is?
Don showed you that picture.
That's right, he is.
Dale, too.
Dale,
Not with hair. Thanks. Don, you owe me money.
All right, good.
Did you know that that was a happy dollar that I was putting up?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm waiting.
Can I go? Okay. Good morning. I had 2 happy dollars, so I guess each one of these are gonna be worth 50 cents. 50 cents that my dad was up for a week. We had a really awesome Thanksgiving. He hasn't been here for about 3 years, so that was awesome. Mark, where are you? I haven't found your pen yet, but I have a really nice Better Homes and Gardens real estate pen.
I already took 10 on Halloween.
11. We're almost at $30.
I have a happy dollar for the picture in the East Penn Press of the little library in front of Willow School with Dr. Boyer, children. It was an Interact advisor. So we were very well, and it said Emmaus Rotary.
It's nice that you emailed that to me in case I didn't get to see it. I could find Tony then later. So, or-
And these are my first happy dollars, and they're good ones. So this weekend, I'm going to Georgia because my son who joined the military just made it through boot camp. So we're going to visit him, so that's super exciting. And we just found out on Thanksgiving my oldest son, who lives in Richmond, Virginia, is expecting a baby.
Bill again?
Normally when there's a piano man, there's a glass on the piano to put money in. So I'm giving $1 for the piano man.
Any more? All yours.
Back to me. All right, I'm gonna ask Bill to come up here again.
Thank you, Rick. As I've mentioned numerous times over the past number of meetings, I'm now at the second last Paul Harris from that presentation of about 13 of them. So if Mike Lahanis would come up here, please. Mike is getting his first Paul Harris. So as has been said in the past, it involves the certificate, the medallion. This is the thing everybody gets nailed for when we have Paul Harris presentations. You forget to wear it, and the traditional pin. So if you bear with me for a minute, I'll give Mike those.
Could you get any closer?
Bill, did you smile?
Congratulations, Mike.
Steve, I believe at this point you're up to introduce our guest.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I started growing my beard as well, but it's not going anywhere unless my wife or my father-in-law gives me a hard time on that. I want to thank again Mendois Daisley. Mendois, that was awesome. Mendois, how old are you? 13. And I believe there's a large resemblance to an old-time member that has passed, Rusty Boyer, used to grace us with his savantness in the morning, so that brought back some really nice memories. Thank you very much. I am very, very honored to introduce our speaker this morning, Shannan Boyle Schuster. She grew up here in Allentown. She went to Allentown High School. She attended Vanderbilt University. She has a master's from Columbia University. She has a doctorate, I got that right, from the University of Virginia. I'll just be honest, I said, what's it? Doctorate? Doctorate? She's like, are you messing with me? I wasn't really, but she got a doctorate. I guess you can tell I don't have a doctorate in anything. She's taught for 25 years in schools all over our country. Most recently at the Friends Central School in Philadelphia. I took notice that she knows Sue Strader, so that meant a lot to me. She's also a member of the Allentown Rotary Club. We're trying to convince her that our club's a little bit better since she is a resident of Emmaus. She's also a very close and dear friend of mine. Everyone, the head of school of Swain School, Shannan Boyle Schuster.
I was told to wear this, but I'm already loud. Do you want it?
Yeah.
Yes. Is that better? Yeah. A little bit? Okay. Yes, okay. So I feel a lot of pressure because there's a parent here and a grandparent here. And normally I could tell lies, I could make stuff up, but I'm going to be held accountable. And I have two students with me. Obviously Mendois has been here playing the piano, and Luke Gerdeman is here as well. And I just thought if two students came, if you wanted to ask them questions at the end, you could get the real story. And I want to give them props because I didn't think of this until Tuesday. So I emailed their parents, and Luke lives nearby, so I thought, well, that's an easy sell, and Mendois is obviously amazing. They not only had to get here at 7 o'clock, but they had to wear special dress, which is really like the death sentence. That's right. Normally you can wear a polo or like a t-shirt, so the fact that they're in special dress, I just want to thank them for that. So I like to do presentations, if I can remember how to get the power on, in part because it keeps me on task, so that I don't forget what I'm supposed to be talking about. So, as Steve mentioned, I've been doing this a long time, and a little full disclosure, I went to public school around here. I thought I would teach in public school my whole life, and one thing led to another. So I taught in public school, and then I ended up in a Catholic school, and then I ended up in an independent school, and so I've really tried all the different types of schools. I still haven't done a boarding school. That's on my list, except I don't know if I really want to sleep with the kids. But I do have experience in all those schools, and so I'm super partial to the Swain School, obviously, but I in no way mean to talk negatively about anything else. I'm just going to talk to you about all the great things about Swain. And I did put some materials on your table. If you don't want them, leave them. I'll collect them back and save trees and reuse them. But there's a brochure you're welcome to take. This one is really a free parenting education series that we run at the school. So we bring in national speakers and documentaries to talk about issues that parents might have questions about. So the first one this year was just about resiliency. The one in February is about the effects of social media on kids. It's a documentary. And the last one is about sports psychology. Last year we had one about sex. So that was really a bigger draw because everyone likes to hear about that. Anyway, so those are free and they're open to the public. You can just come, show up. You don't have to register ahead of time. The dates are on there. We'd love to have you. One of the other sheets is just a general sheet about NIS schools. I'll talk about that in a second. And the last one is, because I'm at the Emmaus Rotary, I thought I would try to do some comparisons to East Penn School District, and in particular Lower Macungie Middle School when applicable. So there's just a little sheet that if you're kind of curious about other differences, rather than waste your time talking, I thought you could look at that. So The Swain vision statement is we nurture the collective joy of learning and individual spirit within each child. And Esther Swain actually said those words. We're not really sure if she said it in 1929 or not, but it makes a great story, so that's what we tell people. And that really is true. That's really what we believe. And if you come to visit the school, you will see lots of happy children skipping around the school. So it truthfully is a very, very joyful place. And also, we really do believe in nurturing the individual. So since I'm a teacher, I thought we would start with a quiz, because I know everyone likes pop quizzes. So, do you guys want to hand those out? So you don't have to use a pen if you don't have one. You can just look it over and tell us what you think the answers are. And if you are associated with Swain, don't tell the other people at your table the answers, because that would not be of high integrity to share your answers. So, yeah, that's just not the way we do it. I actually was talking to students the other day, and I was telling them that when I was in 7th grade, my English teacher used to tape record the vocabulary tests, and we would walk in and he would press play and he would leave for 25 minutes while we all took the quiz. And a student said to me, "You could cheat." I said, "Yes, if I had no morals, but I do." But they were really confused that I would take that slant. All right, so as you look over those, it's a true-false quiz. That's true, exactly. We have a 50% chance of getting each question right. That's exactly right.
Well, no, you wouldn't actually be able to get them all right by guessing, because the chances are it's just
Statistically,
well, no, it gets smaller
it's
for every
statistically
question.
almost impossible.
Well, no, it's 1 to the 5th. Just
Right.
that bit.
Right, so you could.
60.
Could guess them all.
There's yeah,
One
there's
in
one in
624.
Yeah.
All right. True or false? The Swain School was founded in 1929 when D. Esther Swain was given 22 acres of land on 24th Street in Allentown. True. Anyone think it's false? Okay, you're all wrong. It's false. It was started in 1929, and it was started by D. Esther Swain, but it was not started on 24th Street. D. Esther was actually the wife of a Muhlenberg professor, and she had taught in Virginia, and when they moved to Muhlenberg for her husband to work, a bunch of the other wives asked her if she would start a kindergarten class, because there were a lot of children that were of kindergarten age. And so she started with 8 students, 4 boys and 4 girls in a bedroom, and they sat on orange crates in the back of a house. So the very first Swain School was over by Muhlenberg College. A few years later, they outgrew that, and she moved to the Masonic Temple right by West Park, and they used West Park as their playground. And then when they outgrew that, they moved to a larger house right across from Muhlenberg's campus on Shoe Street. And it wasn't until 1951 that they moved to 24th Street. And the reason they moved is it was the 3rd time she was about to shut down the school because it had outgrown the facility. And her solution was, well, I'll just close. And a woman on the board drove her past 22 acres on 24th Street and said, well, what if I give you this land? Then would you move your school here? So actually, we've only been on 24th Street since 1951. Slightly trick question. That's what teachers do. They make it all true and one part false. So you were close. Swain is a small school that serves students who are not thriving in a regular school. Excellent. I'm so glad to hear that. We hear from a lot of people who don't understand Swain. Is that a school for special needs students? Is that a retirement home? We hear a lot when they drive by. But Swain is a school that really serves average to above average students. Our students would thrive in many other places, but they choose to come to Swain for all the reasons I'll tell you in a second. The tuition at Swain is much higher than Catholic school tuition.
True.
That's true. I wish it was false. Catholic school tuition for parish schools is about $3,000 to $4,000. Swain is between $22,000 and $24,000, depending on your grade. You can all take a deep gasp right now. That is an enormous amount of money. We realize that. But 65% of our students receive financial aid. So we actually have a very diverse student body, even though we have a very high tuition rate. And unfortunately, not unlike higher ed, independent school tuition started at a reasonable place, but if you do exponential growth over years, it becomes a really large number. So it's actually something that we're working on at the school, is how to lower tuition. Number 4, Swain has the same number of athletic teams as Lower Macungie Middle School.
True. False. It has more.
I think you get the prize. Are you a plant?
I am not.
Okay, it's true. That's true. But you're a good student. Swain actually has.
Wait, can you say that again?
Do not repeat that, please. We still don't buy it.
Swain actually has more athletic teams than Lower Macungie Middle School, right? Most people wouldn't think that. We only have 300 students. We only have about 120 students in our middle school. Lower Macungie Middle School has 1,200 students in their middle school, but we actually have more sports teams than Lower Macungie Middle School. And part of the reason is we require athletics. So all of our students in 5th through 8th grade are required to play sports 2 out of 3 seasons a year, because we really believe not only does it keep you physically fit, but that there's a lot to learn by being on a team, right? And about cooperation and teamwork and working together and solving problems and resiliency. So that's not uncommon in independent schools, but we actually have a lot of athletic teams because we require all of our students to participate. The final question. Swain students follow the same curriculum as local public schools.
True.
It's false. Part of what makes an independent school independent is that they're completely independent of nearly all of state and federal regulations around education. So if we decide that in 7th grade the only thing we're going to teach is dinosaurs, then we could. We don't do that, but we could. We're completely independent curricularly. We don't do any state testing. We do a test that we choose. That's a national test, but it's not like a standardized state test or anything like that. So we're totally free of all those regulations. So before we kind of get into the belly of it, we really believe that at Swain, especially as a preschool to 8th grade school, we really build a foundation for children. And so many parents that I talk to say, well, I'm saving my money for high school because that's when it really matters, because that's when you get into college. And I say, well, when your child was a baby, did you feed them McDonald's? And everyone says, oh no, it wasn't until they were 4, that I really broke down and went through the drive-through. And even when you think about formula, right? When you think about baby formula, people spend lots of money on baby formula because they think, my God, it's so important, right? That an infant gets nutrition. It's really the same with education. The absolute most important time in a child's education is the beginning. Because if you don't build a good foundation, not unlike a house, it doesn't really matter how good the high school is if the foundation you have underneath it is not what it needs to be. So we really love Swain for the foundation it builds for our students. And we believe that we do that through 3 ways. The first is hands-on learning. And I chose that picture on purpose. That just happened about 2 weeks ago. Our 6th graders were studying ancient civilizations, and they were looking at the Egyptian pyramids. And the teacher was trying to get them to understand the enormity of building pyramids back then, right, without technology. So first they had to build a life-size replica of one of the stones in the pyramid. They did not build it out of stone, they built it out of tubing and paper, but the teacher wanted them to see how big one of those stones really was to build the pyramid. And then they wanted them to experience what it would be like to move one of those stones without machinery. So they estimated, or they looked up how much the stones weighed. It was about 2, I don't know, was it 2 tons? No. A little under 2 tons. And we found out that our business manager's truck had a similar weight. And so we tied up his truck with a rope. We had kids go outside and see how many kids it would take to pull the truck in neutral to try to visualize what it would be like to move one of those stones to build the pyramid. So that's just an example of hands-on learning, but we really believe that kids are more engaged and curious and excited when they can experience learning and not just sit and listen like you're doing now. This is the worst type of teaching, by the way, that I'm doing. The second thing that we do at Swain that we're really proud of is parent partnerships. So that parent education series flyer I showed you is one example, but we really feel like it's our job to work with parents to meet their child's goals. So this year, before school even started, we had a parent conference so that parents and teachers could meet so we could say, what do you want your kid to grow in this year? And some parents say math, and some parents say, I want them to get more friends. And some parents say, I want them to shut up because all they do is talk. No, I'm kidding. My parents would have said that. But you know, it's really a partnership about what are your goals as a family and how can we help achieve those goals, because we want to help raise great kids, and some of that is about us working together, not just dropping them off at the front door. And the final thing that we do is we use research for all of our decisions. So if we're deciding what math program to use, or how to decide what lunch to serve, or how much recess to have, we always read educational research and then make that decision. So we have 2 recesses a day in every single grade, because research shows that the more brain breaks you get, the higher actually your brain functioning is when you come back in. So it's things like that. So those are the 3 pillars. And I should have done this slide first, I apologize. But a lot of people don't know what an independent school is. That's kind of a jargon word that we use. So an independent school has to be a 501c3 nonprofit. It has to be governed by a board. There are different kind of government regulations that make us an independent school. To be truly independent, you're not affiliated with any organization. And that's really the big difference between an independent school and, let's say, St. Thomas More, right? So St. Thomas More is a private school, but it's part of the diocese. So it has an overarching umbrella. There are other types of schools that have overarching umbrella. Charter schools are not independent, they're actually public schools. So independent schools are just what that word says. They are truly independent of any other organization. There are other independent schools in the Valley. Hillside is one of them. Moravian Academy is another. The Jewish Day School is another. There's one in Quakertown called the United Friends School. But those are really the only independent schools that are recognized as independent in the Valley.
Isn't United Friends Quaker? I mean, is that...
It is, but they are not part of an... It's like you can be religious, but not be part of an overarching umbrella. Great question. And there's actually Catholic schools that are independent. Okay. So St. Joe's Prep in Philadelphia is a Catholic school, but it is independent because it is not run by the diocese. It is run by a board of trustees. It is totally independent financially, and if they decided not to become Catholic the next week, they could. But great question. So that's a little bit about what an independent school is. Oh, sorry, I should say, that picture is from our spring musical last year. We did Mulan. So we have about 60 to 70 students each year that participate in our musical. Any child that wants to be in the spring musical in 6th, 7th, or 8th grade can be. It's a little over the top in a good way. Luke, you're always in the play.
Yeah.
And,
I mean,
Mendwa plays.
Yeah.
What a surprise.
Yeah, last year.
There's Luke right there in the
No,
middle.
it's not. That's not.
That's not Luke. It could
Right?
be.
Yeah, that's him right
It
in the middle.
might be me. It might be me.
Yeah, that is you, Luke. That's true.
Probably.
That's Luke right there in the yellow.
Yeah.
Right.
My facial expression is just.
Yeah. So we have a really robust theater program. Do you want to mention that?
We have a lot of support behind the theater program. My first year here, when I was in 5th grade, we got a new theater director, Miss Boshin. She has all these cool ideas about what we should be doing in class, but also in the extracurricular stuff as well. Every fall, we do a fall play, which is like mostly student written and student tech. The fall play is really student driven, different student led monologues and scenes. But yeah, it's all about like what do you like want to do, and like I have a friend last year who did all of the lighting and sound for the musical, and he had a lot of fun doing that. And so it's just based around what you want to do, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
So it's a super well done production. I've been to many middle school plays in my life as a teacher, and I would say when I went to the first Swain one, I thought I'm either really scared or really impressed. But the costumes are unbelievable, and the set is unbelievable, and it really is inclusive. And the other thing I love about the way we do it is we do it in between sports seasons, so kids never have to choose between playing a sport or being in the play, right? Because we want kids to be able to do all of it.
Do you participate in the Freddie Awards then?
No, that's only for high schools. They don't allow middle school. And I wouldn't want to beat them out. No, I'm just kidding. So a little bit more about our program. We have a really robust outdoor ed program. So all of our students do outdoor education starting in younger grades, and then starting in 5th grade, they stay overnight, and they do multiple overnight trips. So some of them are required. This was a 7th grade required trip this year for 3 days. In Horsham, and of course, if you ever want to know when it's going to rain or be cold, it's whatever dates we choose the overnight trips for. So this one, I think it rained all 3 days. But we do overnight trips. We also have optional trips. So in 7th and 8th grade, you can go dog sledding in the winter. You can go to Lake George and do snowshoeing. But again, we really believe that kids need to get outside and get moving. All of our students starting in kindergarten take art, music, Spanish, and drama classes. As Luke mentioned, we have a robust drama program. We do have student support, so for a child who's struggling, there is an employee who just helps with reading. There's an employee who just helps support gifted students who need extra enrichment in the classroom. There's another person who just helps with organization. That might be hard to believe, but occasionally middle school students struggle with organization. So although we have really bright students at the school, we also know that occasionally you might need support, and we also have an unbelievable counselor because sometimes kids need emotional support as well. We have an engineering and design class that starts in 6th grade. We have a maker space that's filled with woodworking tools, electronic tools, 3D printers, laser cutters, vinyl printers, where kids design and make things. So our 1st graders study friction in science class, and then they have to make sleds out of reusable materials and test them outside. So the first year that we did the sled project, of course it didn't snow for days on end. So the sleds were done, and it was January, and we were waiting and waiting for that snow. And then finally a 1st grade parent went out and got a snowmaking machine and put it in the back of the school so we could try out the sleds. And then of course it snowed the day after that. But we do have our engineering design class is really meant to do real life activities, not just make up stuff. So we try to solve real life problems through that class. We have extended care and auxiliary programming, so you can drop off an hour before school starts. Your child can stay until 5:30 at night if you're a working parent. We do have a lot of families where both parents work, so we have child care on days that we have off from school, because although the school may not have classes on the Wednesday of Thanksgiving, many people have to work, so we do provide child care on those days. So we really try to meet parents' needs, and that's part of that parent partnership idea of how can we make your life easier. We have instrumental music lessons that you can sign up for. So out of about 300 students, 115 take private music lessons within the school day, so their parent doesn't have to drive them and write a separate check, and things like that. So we're really trying to work with families to say, what would make your life better? And I'm not kidding, we're gonna try doing dinners on Fridays, because I hate to cook on Fridays, and I thought, wouldn't it be great as if you drove through the carpool line, we could hand you a lasagna, and you wouldn't have to cook dinner? So we're really looking into that. In 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, instead of music class, you have to join an ensemble. So we have a band, we have a drumming ensemble, a chorus, a guitar ensemble. We were lucky enough to have the Martin family as a family at Swain. So we have 36 Martin guitars and 30 Martin ukuleles that they've donated. Wow. So lots of our kids study guitar and ukulele. And then we have an electronic music option as well, where kids can learn to write music using technology and perform it. And then I'd say our biggest difference at Swain is our public speaking program. So we require students to start doing public speaking in preschool, and then by the time they graduate, we expect them to be poised, confident speakers. So just as Luke has already stood up once without being asked, we really want children to feel that they have a voice and that they're empowered to speak and that they wouldn't be nervous getting up and giving this presentation. And in a small school, we have lots of opportunity for that, and so we're really proud of that. Do you want to add anything, Mandwa or Luke? What's your favorite thing up there?
Maybe the chorus. I mean, Mr. Kennedy's great with, yeah, and I mean, he lets us pick the songs, which sometimes doesn't end up so well. I mean, we're doing Country Roads by John Denver, just based off of
Was that your choice?
It was my choice. I voted for it, and now we're doing it. So.
Excellent. I can't wait to hear it. Mandwa, what's your favorite thing?
I really like the engineering and design class.
Yeah.
I think that...
A little louder.
I think that, especially the things that you do in the older grades, you have a lot more freedom to do, like, I mean, there's a project and there's sometimes a rubric, but you have a lot of freedom to do what you want, choose who you want to work with, the materials that you want, and he doesn't teach like a lesson on how to cut wood, but like,
Can you not hear him? You can hear him a little bit.
He wants...
Stand up.
He wants you to like learn on your own, but like he doesn't want you guys to get hurt. So like even though he wants you to find your way around the place, the engineering and design place, he wants you to ask questions and then you'll be able to.
Awesome. All right, why don't you keep the mic there? Luke can hold the mic in that way.
I guess I can.
So the biggest question we get asked is, well, where do kids go after Swain? Because if you end in 8th grade, they have to go somewhere for high school. So about a third of our graduates go to local public schools. About a third go to what we call day schools, private day schools. So Central Catholic, Moravian, Perkiomen, occasionally Becca, but day schools, and then about a third go to boarding schools where they actually live there. The list of boarding schools is about 50 long that we send kids to, but I've named the ones that are most popular. So Hill School, you've probably heard of, Blair, Mercersburg Academy, Exeter, Middlesex, and each year the list shifts a little bit depending on the kids, and we do have a secondary school placement counselor, not unlike a college counselor, who works with families and the child to say, well, where do you think you want to go to high school? And do you want it to be big or do you want it to be small? Do you love music and you want to have a special program for that? So, Luke and Mendoa, do you want to mention just what you're thinking?
Well, I mean, I've been looking at just a lot of I'm open to a lot of the different things. I'm kind of worried about a bunch of these private high schools because these applications are just writing essays. A lot of fun, Mendoa, do you have any? Oh God.
Yeah, but I really like the secondary school placement teacher. I think especially for me, because I'm the first child and we don't have a lot of experience with this kind of stuff, it's good. And Swain offers a lot of different, like there's been almost like a seminar, I guess, that we've been having for like the past few weeks. We would go in and either we have started writing our essays or we're in the process of brainstorming and stuff. And it's almost like a workshop, so like you can go in and there's a few teachers there so they can help you, or it's almost like a study hall. Where
Do you know where you're applying?
I'm also like Luke, I'm open to everything. I'm just, I guess.
You'll have to decide for yourself.
Yeah, we'll have to. I mean, my older brother goes to Hill as a day student, but I don't know. I mean, I really like charter arts, but I don't know if I'd be able to get in.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
You have to try out.
Audition,
Yeah, so a lot of the private high schools, you have to write essays, you have to interview, and you have to take a standardized test, a lot like applying to college. Obviously, public schools are a little less onerous in that way, and then charter arts, which is a charter school that Luke mentioned, requires an audition because it's an art school, so it really depends on what you're after. So our goal is really to make kids ready for life, right? And so a lot of people think that school is about getting ready for the next level of school, and it's about so K-8 is getting you ready for high school, which is getting you ready for college, but we really like to look at Swain as getting you ready to live, not just to succeed in school, because I always say, school is just one small portion of your life, and now that I'm old, that portion seems to get smaller and smaller, right? So when you're young, much of your life was spent in school, but by the time you become a middle-aged person, you go, wow, that was just this little small piece in the puzzle. So we want to make sure we're preparing kids to be great people and to be productive adults who are thriving, not just good students. So that's a really quick overview. I did have video, but there was no sound, and I didn't feel like trying to maneuver that, but I'm happy to answer questions, and Luke and Mendoa are happy to answer questions, and I just appreciate the time.
I think you had mentioned 65% of your students receive aid. After aid, what's the average tuition per student?
It really, I mean, I do have an average, but it's really skewed, right? Because there are people who receive 90% aid, right, who only pay $2,000, and then there are people who might get $1,000 or $3,000 worth of aid. So I do know that average, and it's about in the middle, between 0 and 24, but it's not an accurate. I'm a math person, so in this case, average is the worst statistical measure. It's a little bit of a barbell.
How do you fund your scholarships?
So financial aid is funded through the operating budget, but then we also get scholarships through the EITC, OSTC state fund. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Do you use any endowment funds for scholarships?
In part, because endowment just runs into the operating budget, and since the operating budget funds financial aid and some scholarships, yes, but we do not have a huge endowment, so we don't really get a lot of runoff from endowment.
Shannon, what deciphers the financial aid? Is it an income-based or?
It's mostly income, so financial aid is really run through a third-party company. There are two main companies in the United States that do financial aid for private schools, and so you fill out a bunch of online answers, you insert your tax forms, and then that third-party company sends us a report for the family about what that third party thinks the family can afford. So it's not just how much money you make, because you might be caring for an ailing parent, right? Or you might have extenuating circumstances. So it really gives you a chance to explain your financial situation. I think a lot of people are surprised that they qualify, because people think, well, I make X, I'll never qualify, but you might. And we always say you might as well try, because you might be surprised. So I think that's one challenge we have, is people see the sticker price and then never come to visit. And if you came to visit, there's always a chance that you could qualify.
Not knowing there was so much athletic activity, who would you get to compete against?
So we're in a private school league. Great question. So we play Moravian, and we play the Montgomery School in Westchester. We play Wincroft School in Pottstown, Kimberton, Waldorf School, and then we play a couple schools in Quakertown. So just some other private schools.
And I'd like to know, how many children did it take to pull that rock?
So we did it twice, because there were two different groups. The first group, we had the truck on a slight incline, and it took like 3 kids, and we were like, that's way too easy. So the second time we moved the truck to another spot, and then it took about 5. There was an 8th grader helping.
But there was an 8th grader.
One 8th grader pulled it alone, but that was when it was on the slant.
It would seem to me that it would be a lot easier to pull the truck than to pull a stone.
It was. We didn't get an exact replica of building the pyramid. It was really just to get, a little bit of context.
The wheels are.
We're taking a field trip to Egypt next week, and that's how
Do you still have summer programs?
We do. So we have the whole summer for 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, because for working parents, that's really challenging. And then for the older students, it's more kind of 1-week camps in a variety of
Where are those
topics.
posted?
On the website. So there's a tab on the website called Summer at Swain.
My son James went to the woodworking program.
Oh, great.
Made a big bookshelf. I was impressed that he was able to do that in a week. Apparently, you have a heck of what I would have called an industrial arts room there.
Yeah.
You mentioned that earlier, but he was very impressed. He still wasn't convinced he wanted to go to Swain from St. Anne's, but I can see him thinking about it. The wheels were turning.
Yeah, that's all right. We also welcome visitors, and the lunch isn't bad. So if you come between 11 and 12:30, you can get a free lunch. Did you have a question? No. Sorry. Any other question? And I'm happy, like I said, the boys are happy to answer as well.
Yeah. Does vocational fit in there anywhere, since there's such a tremendous shortage? Seems like a lot of it's focused toward college and being the professional and those types of things. Vocational have a role at all in this? Or you mentioned woodworking.
Well, I'd say more the makerspace. So it's a combination of what was industrial arts and what is a little more current. So for our makerspace, we have a dirty side and a clean side, and the dirty side is the woodworking, materials and all sorts of fun things like that. And then the clean side is really the technology side. So if you want to build something on a 3D printer, you first have to design it in CAD, right, which is an architecture program, and then you would insert that file into the 3D printer, and it would come out of the 3D printer. So it's similar. We don't have cooking class. That doesn't mean we don't ever cook, because we do, but so I wouldn't say it's what I experienced growing up in terms of industrial arts, but there's definitely, especially at our school, we really value hands-on, so we try to do as much of that as we can.
I have a question for Luke. Luke, when you're taking a test, can you pass answers among one another like I used to do?
Can you pass the answers? Can you cheat?
Well, given how there are only 12 other people in the room, and it's just you gotta be really subtle about it.
So I didn't mention that. So our average class size is 12, and so we're really lucky to have really small classes. And at the core of it, which I think is a great way to end, because this is my hint, Rotary is so much about fellowship, right, and about the relationships, and I could certainly see that today, just being a visitor, and that's really what we pride ourselves on at a small independent school. So I know every child, every teacher knows every child's name, I can tell you something about every child, I know every parent, and when kids feel that kind of nurturing environment for 11 years of their life, we really believe that they're going to turn out to be really healthy adults, because a lot of childhood is really hard in terms of those other pieces, right? There's the academic piece, but there's the social emotional piece. And so for our students to spend 11 years in a small environment where everyone knows them and everyone cares about them is really about those relationships, and we really feel like we can do an amazing job. So thank you for having me. I have a giveaway.
There you go.
So Steve Steve suggested I come up with some sort of a quiz question. Luke or Mendoa, can you think of a quiz question?
About like what?
About Swain, or maybe like a calculus question?
Well, I mean,
Luke's taking pre-calc
Yeah.
as an 8th grader.
Yeah, so I'm kind of bummed out because I'm missing out on the engineering and design because during that period I'm taking pre-calculus. But well,
we need a quiz question.
A quiz question, just any.
How about this, Mendoa? You were playing sheet music today, so I think I saw the composer, right? I might have seen the composer. Does anyone know the composer that Mendoa was playing?
He cannot play.
What?
You cannot play.
You probably walked over to the piano.
No, I can play the song he played.
On the kazoo?
I don't think I can give you the prize. How about this? Who's got the closest? You have one? Okay.
Well, okay, it's a math problem. I don't know. Okay, so do you guys know how logarithms work? Okay.
Luke.
Okay, imagine.
Really?
A series of logarithms, starting with the logarithm of 1/2, 1/2, going to 2/3, going to 3/4, so on until 99/100.
Okay.
How would you? Do you know what that is?
Do you know what that is?
I do. It's 10.
Okay, well now it's not a quiz question.
It's 10. Well, the way you do it is when.
Good at math, not good at quizzes.
Yeah.
Whose birthday is closest?
Wow, that's how we're going.
All right, Mendoa, hurry up. We gotta go.
All right, this is a riddle.
Okay, stand up.
Sally's mother had 4 children. Mike, Andrew, Charles. Who was the 4th child?
Sally.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Luke, thank you. Manuel, thank you very much. Don't forget your phone, Manuel. It's over on the piano. All right, please all rise and we will pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Remember, board meeting following. Thank you, everybody.